Welcome to my channel. I'm Lasso. This is Lasso's Passions. This is one of the things I've been doing lately, which is reviewing movies that I've been watching on Netflix. I believe this is the seventh one that I'm done so far. I've been enjoying them very much. Yeah, tonight, like I said I would go live at 11 p.m. CST. And thank you for joining us tonight for this review and plot outline for the 2025 Netflix film called Brick. Very interesting. I like the concept. I like the movie. I got my cup of milk with me, as I usually do, and I have my vape, as I usually do. And I like to say that this review and plot outline is brought to you by the Indie Showcase, which does local events here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, screening short films and reading scripts, and even putting on classes for actors. Um, and the film brought to you by the Stay Gold Film Festival, which is on. You can find that on Film Freeway. The regular deadline for entering a short film. I believe the focus is on short films. I need to look at it and see if they updated it to features, which I think they will. So the regular deadline is December 24th, like pretty much Christmas. So keep that in mind. I'm also putting myself out there that I'm got my first book published through Amazon. It's available. It's called Dialogues: Oklahoma Independent Cinema, Filmmakers, Actors, and the Future of AI in Film. That's available now on Amazon. If you can get yourself a copy, it definitely supports the India tour and not the India tour, the Indie Showcase and the Stay Gold Film Festival. Okay, so let's get to it, huh? The Brick. Very interesting. It's now on Netflix. It's only on Netflix, as far as I know. And I really enjoyed it. Um, what's up, Tiffany Noel 1602? How you doing tonight? Hope you're doing well. Um, it's a foreign film. I believe it's originally in German. Don't quote me on that. I think it is. It does take place in Hamburg, um, and it starts out. Well, let me just kind of go before I go through the plot. Let me just say that I really enjoyed it. It had some gore in it. It had violence, and this and that. What's up, Hermania Martinez? How's it going? How's it going tonight? The cinematography was great. I enjoyed the music. What I really liked was how in movies they use bookends. There's something in the beginning that they later use at the very end. They did the same thing with the van that they have, this pink van. The characters themselves, they did a good job of really giving the characters jobs that really fit their personality and their just who they are, and who they are is how they figure out, you know what they do to fit how to get out of this thing. It's an escape room kind of movie, okay. I would say escape room with a bit of sci-fi element to it, and the sci-fi-ness was good. It didn't look cheesy or anything to me. It's funny because in the movie they bring up the Matrix, and it for a second there's like almost like a bit of a resemblance to that movie in the sense of what happens in there, and the whole the net. Well, not to give it away, but I guess I kind of will. The whole technology. And I'm going to give it away completely, but the whole technology behind how they're trapped kind of has a matrixy kind of feel to it, sort of, not completely, but you'll understand when I talk about the plot that it's like that. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a fun movie. It was thrilling. It kept you guessing, and it was fun to watch the characters figure out this mystery of how they got locked in here by this weird brick that's covered everything, and so they're trying really hard to get out, and they meet some interesting characters along the way. It was really enjoyable. I give it two thumbs up, 5 stars. I believe it was once it was debuted on Netflix, it was in the top 10 list. It was number one in 36 countries, and I see why. Very enjoyable, very good film. That actor, Matthias, the lead guy, he's been in some other movies that were fantastic. So he is definitely making a name for himself as an actor through Netflix. Um, there's not really much to say other than that, as far as the just the review part. But let's go through the plot line. The plot line is pretty exquisite. Every film I review has a sort of different structure to it, using the same mechanics but different. And I really, really like the character arc in this. It's between the lead and the female lead. You have his name is Will, and you have Olive, who goes by Liv, and their character arc is basically a character arc where they start out and their relationship's very rocky. Olive is doing one last attempt to save the relationship. Will, like, kind of reflecting how they're locked in, he has put up walls around himself and he doesn't allow anybody in. He stays busy working on a video game. He's a video game designer, and it seems like to be a really good one. And again, that comes into play. The people's jobs really come into play in the movie and how they act and how they think and how they figure things out, which I really enjoyed. But the character arc, basically, when you get to the midpoint, is when they have their big argument, and that's when they realize that their first plan to get out doesn't work. And so after the midpoint, he goes on, the character arc continues. They finally bond together. Their love is newly sparked. Their bond is newly sparked and refound. And so it goes from their story goes from a couple that is struggling about to break up to newfound love, which was, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it had a nice parallel, nice reflection to the story itself. So I thought it was very fitting that they made that choice, and very brilliantly made, in my opinion. So let's get into the plot, how it starts, and how it goes through the different, like, inciting incident, the different plot turns, the acts, the midpoint, the act three, the escalation of to the climax, and then to the final end. Which I have two critiques about the movie, which are not big deals. They're not a big. It's not a breaker for me. Like I said, I give it two thumbs up. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. But I do have two critiques, and I guess I'll tell you right now what my two critiques are. No, because I don't want to ruin the plot until let me get through it, and then I'll tell you my two critiques. So it starts out with Will, and he's actually the first shot is "What's up, Tail?" The first shot is you see a fly trapped in a cup, which again is kind of like foreshadowing what's about to happen to them. And Will is working on his computer. He's doing his gaming and whatnot. And he right there and then you see a bit of they call it save the cat. So he takes the flea and instead of killing it, not a flea, a fly. Instead of killing it, he takes it out and tries to put it out the window. And you can see he's not a cruel person. He's not just gonna smash it. He actually has what do you call it? He has an awareness to living things. He's trying to release it. Anyways, um, so it continues on. There's a bit of a problem with the game system. It turns out the 2 month deadline got it basically got shattered. They have to like move everything forward and get the game done immediately, and everyone's freaking out. And so Liv comes in the room. She's like, "Hey, like, how you doing? Like, they go out for a minute. They get pizza. They take it to the van that they just got back from the shop. It's this pink van that you see later at the end of the movie that they use. And Liv brings up a discussion, and Liv says, how about we just go to Paris tonight, and basically start our lives from scratch. Because in the beginning as well, there's a bit of flashbacks, and it doesn't really make sense to you as the audience, but you do register it in. Flashbacks of her pregnant, and there's no child around, so there's kind of an assumption that I guess they lost their child, right? And they're dealing with that trauma, and which is why they're having issues as a couple. Um, but essentially, Will says, "No, I can't just go and leave. I have this game that I have to finish, and it's important to me, and so it's kind of bad timing." And he says, "We'll go later." And Liz is, I mean, yeah, Liv is pretty disappointed. You can see it in her face, and so they end up going back to the apartment. During those few shots that you see them outside the apartment, is the only times you see them outside the apartment in the whole movie. They come across Antoine for a minute. They say hi to Antoine. He kind of becomes an interesting figure in the movie later on. They say hi to Mr. Friedman, who owns the apartments and is doing renovations. It's got this, the whole building is covered with construction stuff. It's like when you see in big cities when they do construction on big buildings, they especially like in foreign countries that I've seen, they cover up the whole entire building. So the whole building's covered, and so they go back in. Next thing you know, they're like going to bed, and you can tell that they're not very lovey-dovey. There's something going on there. He falls asleep, and the following morning, I think it's like 6 in the morning. Liz is already up. Keep saying Liz, but it's Liv. Liv is already up, and she's pretty much on her way out the door. She takes the key out of her apartment and leaves it on this counter, and she says, "I'm going to Paris with you or without you," and that's pretty much the end of the relationship. They're like, "This is the end." And so Liv is on her way out the door, and this is where the exciting incident happens. Liv is on her way out the door, and it's when she opens it, they're met with the whole doorway blocked by this like metallic gray brick. It has a weird pattern to it, and so she's like, kind of like, "Let me go," almost like blaming Will. And Will's like, "I don't have anything to do with this. Like, I don't know what this is. This must be part of the construction. Like, I don't know. This is not me. Don't put this on me. I'm not trying to stop you from going, but this isn't me." Um, and so they're kind of freaking out. They check their phones. Their phones aren't working. They don't have service. They check the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi's out. And so they're kind of freaking out. Will starts like hitting it. She starts hitting it. That's not working. So and Will notices when he gets his phone close to the wall, that brick wall, it starts to do some weird staticky stuff, and the light turns on it, like automatically. It's just kind of weird. You just kind of take note as an audience guy, audience member. You take note of that. So they kind of panic and they look all over. They see all the windows. All the windows are blocked by the same pattern and brick and whatever. And she's like, she doesn't know what it is. She's like, this is so. She's an architect, so she's trying to make sense of it, and it doesn't make any sense to her. So kind of out of panic, she picks up a drill and she starts like trying to drill through the front door, the brick, and it's not working. She calls Will to help her, and with all both of them on the drill pushing, it doesn't do anything. All it does is heat up the tip of the drill. And so they realize that's not going to work. So they end up like drilling through different parts of their apartment, through different walls to see if they can get out somehow. And they realize that there's no way out for them. There's no The whole thing is like cover their apartment except for the walls that lead into their neighbors, and the floor, right? They're assuming that, right? So they have a bit of a fight, and Will ends up throwing his phone to the brick wall, basically, and it breaks. And he's kind of sitting there for a second. Liv apologizes, but he realizes that there's a chip from the phone is stuck to the wall, and he notices that the wall is magnetic. So they're just kind of thinking, like, okay, what does this mean? There's no real explanation to that, but they want to see how magnetic this thing is. So they start, finding metallic objects around the apartment and start sticking it to the doorway there, to the brick wall. And they've noticed that there's these four squares. They're like the same size and they're placed in a certain way that that's where the magnetic strength is like the strongest. And they put all these like metallic stuff in all the squares and they're looking at it and trying to figure out how to interact with it. And the metallic things on the door start shaking like pretty aggressively. And Will gets like this gut feeling that something's bad is going to happen. So you know, tells her to duck, and he like jumps on over like in front of her and like takes her down. And all the stuff that was like metallically magnetized to the brick wall shoots out. It just shoots out towards them and actually hits Will. A lot of it misses, but a lot of it hits Will's back, and his back is just covered in like metallic pieces from the top of his back to the lower. Didn't seem to do a lot of damage, but it did stick to his skin. And so there's a scene there where Liv is like pulling out the metallic parts out of Will's back. Like there's a little bit of montage sequence there, and that was a nice little scene. That they it's one of those things where she's like, thankful that Will told him to duck, and there's a bit of appreciation there. So their bond is coming back around. They were having troubles, and this is a nice little moment where you kind of see them bonding again for a second. And so they hear their neighbors like arguing or something, and so they drill the wall facing their neighbor, and so they drill like a hole like this, and they're talking, and they meet their neighbors, and it's an Airbnb that they've rented out for the night or whatever, and so they're freaking out. They're on drugs actually. They're freaking out. They think that the superhost is trying to kill them. That's Marvin and Anna over there, and Marvin's kind of freaking out. Marvin's kind of a silly character, but he's got his moments, but he's kind of clumsy in a way. He's kind of doesn't think thinks through like Will. Will's a very intelligent person. He's very calm and collective, while Marvin's more his emotions get the best of him. And that'll come into play later for sure. So they're kind of panicking, and Anna, the girlfriend, tells Marvin to take more drugs to calm down. So you don't hear from them for a minute, but whenever you do hear from them again, you hear their Will and Liv are like they go through if they have water. They notice that there's no water coming out of the faucets. They're trying to see if they have any food, and they're just kind of eating whatever chips they have. And then what happens is you hear from that neighbor and or Marvin, you hear like chaos, you hear glass breaking, you hear yelling. So they're kind of like, what the hell's going on? So they get that drill and start drilling a bigger hole and like start knocking down the wall. And so Will grabs a bat and Liv has a like pepper spray. So they go in the room to investigate. They're looking around. They don't see anything for a minute. They're looking around. It's kind of tense. They see blood on the floor. It's kind of getting more tense. And then finally, they see Anna on the floor, and there's like a broken glass door. That's where the brick wall is for them, like a patio door. And they go to Anna, and they see blood on her. They check on her, make sure she's okay. They get her back up. She's kind of really out of it, and so Will goes looking around to see where Marvin is, and Marvin attacks Will and like knocks him down basically, and is able to get the bat and start like pressing against his neck, kind of like choking him. So then Liv comes with the what do you call it, the eye spray stuff. The I just said it here a second ago. The pepper spray, and sprays Marvin in the face, and he's kind of like in pain, right? And so that's when Will gets up and like hits him in the stomach with the bat, and that's where Anna runs in. It's like, no, don't hurt him. He didn't do anything. It was me. I was trying to break the bricks, whatever, and he was just trying to stop me, and I accidentally hit him, and it's not my blood, it's his blood. So they're all just kind of like confused for a second, and so because Marvin attacked Will ends up taping his hands together, right? So now they're sitting on the couch calmly, and they're kind of talking and discussing things, and they're trying to figure out, like what the hell's going on. Marvin is thinking it's like the super host trying to kill them, and So Liv has an idea, and then again, when I say that the jobs they carry really comes into play, and this is where it comes into play in the form of, Liv knows the building, she knows the history of it, and so she tells him that she's aware that the bottom floor of the basement was an air raid shelter, and so it supposedly leads to like the subway system, and they 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 believe that that could be their way out. And so, they're thinking about that. And Will actually looks around their neighbor's apartment, around the Airbnb, and he finds like a private room that's like not for the Airbnb guest, right? It's like sectioned off, it's locked. So he kicks it open and he like takes a look around, and he finds like there's like these little boxes of tiny cameras, and that's kind of like concerning. And then he finds a big sledgehammer. And so he tries to break the bricks with the sledgehammer. It's not working. So Marvin and Liv, they both agreed not to try to break it open because they might end up breaking the sledgehammer, and they figured that they could use it. So and so Liv is like, okay, so what we'll do is we'll break through the apartment floors, go from one apartment to the next until we get down to that air raid shelter. And once we get down there, we should be able to access the subway system. So that's the plan they devise, and that's pretty much where I would say Act One is that whole beginning where we meet all the characters. We're like 20 minutes into the movie. They meet their neighbors. Meeting their neighbors is kind of like a plot turn one, and I would say plot turn two. And at the end of Act One, beginning of Act Two is when they devise this plan and put it into action. So now we're in Act Two, and they're breaking through the floor of the apartment. They get through it. They break through after some hacking it and hacking it, and essentially they have this like cloth little rope that they tie together, like shirt with whatever cloth they have to make a rope, and so Will's able to climb it down, and Liv is about to hand him the baseball bat. Before he can reach it, here comes out Mr. Oswald. Mr. Oswald is an old guy who fought in the war, and he's got a gun, and he's pretty much pointing it at Will, and pretty much walks up to him, has it pointed right to his head. And Mr. Oswald's like, I know why you're here. You're trying to steal my supplies, and he's like really paranoid of people turning on him to take his like supplies. Then here comes Leah. Leah is his granddaughter, and she calms down the whole situation. Will's explaining that they have a plan to break through all the apartment floors to get down to the air raid basement, and that they think that they feel like that is open in theory, and they can escape to the subway system. So Leah and the grandfather confirm that there is, in fact, a air raid down there. So they team up to do this. And Marvin, they untie Marvin from the tape because he's like, I didn't mean to attack you. I was on drugs and I didn't know what was going on. Like, I apologize. And so they let him go. They pick him to start breaking the floor of Mr. Oswald's apartment. So he starts going at it. And as he's going at it, Will looks down over where there's a pile of stuff that came down from the ceiling, and there's a fire detector. And he kind of just, for some reason, looks at it and just kind of studies it and opens it. There's a camera. And so this kind of freaks everybody out because what Marvin said in the beginning was that he thought that the superhost had something to do with this and that they were watching them like a game, and like they were going to die there. And so Will's like, oh crap, like, is this what it is? And so they go and check a different fire detector, and they open it up, and it's got a camera in it. So they're like, okay, this is really suspicious. So his apartment is right next to theirs. Mr. Friedman. Mr. Friedman, the old man said that Mr. Freeman was the one who installed the fire detectors. So they're like, okay, well, let's go ask him. He's right behind this wall. His apartment is. So they break down that wall. They go inside. Will with his bat, Marvin behind him, Liv is behind them, and they're inside. Marvin finds the apartment is really interesting. It's like really luxurious, very like it's got like zebra heads and like weird uh, monuments, like something you would see like rich people have, right, or something. And there's this like machete that looks like it might belong in a museum or something. And so Marvin takes it, and he's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." So now we have Will with the bat and Marvin with the machete. They're going around. Finally, they go to the front door of that apartment where they find Mr. Friedman dead, and they find him dead in a very weird manner. He doesn't have his hands have been cut off, and so at this point in the movie, you're like, "What the heck is going on?" Right? So if they're just very confused. They think there's a killer in the apartment. Oh, great! Fucking bug man, my milk. So they're very confused by this. Marvin's freaking out. Everyone's freaking out, finding this body, Mr. Friedman, their landlord, who's got his hands chopped off and he's dead on the floor. And Will picks up his phone and looks through it and sees that he was taking pictures with the flash, and he's kind of going through his phone. There's like multiple pictures, and you can see the flash reflecting off the wall. And that comes into play later because at this point they don't know what the heck's going on. They don't know why his hands are chopped off. But as an audience member, you kind of the thinking is that either when that wall appeared, he was trying to like stick his hand in to stop it or something, and he got his hands chopped off. Or there's another reason, which I will explain later because I don't want to jump ahead of the plot line. So at this point, they notice him, then he's dead, and so they're kind of freaked out. So they continue the plan to start keep digging down, and so they dig down. They notice a newspaper that even earlier in the movie, in the beginning of the movie, when they're out in the apartment, like outside the apartment, walking and say hi to Mr. Friedman, you can see in the background a big plume of black smoke, and he says, "Yeah, there's a fire down at the harbor district or something like that." And so they see the newspaper and they see the picture of the smoke in the harbor, and they're starting to think like, is this something related to what's going on? So that's a clue for the audience, right? Keep that in mind. So everything you see is like clues that add up, which is like really nice because not only is it like a escape room situation, not only is it sci-fi ish, but it's also like a mystery, and they have all these clues that truly add up to figuring it out, which I really appreciate that aspect of the movie. So they're Marvin's hacking at the floor, and like the floor is weak or something, and the whole chunk just falls down. So they all fall through. Will is a little hurt. Anna gets hurt. Marvin's a bit hurt, and but they're okay. They just get a little cut up. And so Leah and the grandpa have a ladder. They use the ladder to climb down. Once they climb down it, they meet Yuri. But the thing is, they don't know who Yuri is. They've never seen him before. They don't even. They didn't. They. It's like someone who doesn't live there. And Yuri explains that he's visiting his friend Antoine. This is Antoine's apartment. So Antoine is like he's a pretty big, strong guy, and we find out later that he was a policeman, and that makes a lot of sense to his skills that come in play later. But he, you can tell the actor does a good job of looking suspicious. Like he's being nice, but as the audience, just the way he's acting, there's something going on that's very suspicious. And so Liv asks, "Where's Antoine?" And so Yuri takes him to the bedroom, and he's dead. He's in bed and he's dead. And Yuri explains that he was trying to figure out a way to get out, and he was going crazy, and he had a pacemaker, and when he got close to the bricks, that it may have messed up his pacemaker, and he had a heart attack. And so to Will, that kind of explanation makes sense because earlier in the movie he had his cell phone to the bricks and it was like causing static. So he was okay. That's kind of a good explanation of why he's dead. Everyone feels sorry for him and whatnot. They look at his paperwork, Antoine's paperwork. It's very mathematical. It's like a mad genius thing going on. And Yuri was like, yeah, he was going crazy because he was trying to figure out a way to get out, you know. And so they so after that meeting, you know, they discuss kind of what's going on, right? Yuri basically tells them, like, okay, listen, this is what I think is going on. This is like a high tech stuff that is designed to protect us from like an atomic bomb, a chemical bomb, any kind of thing, right? And so that's what he's thinking, and that's what he tells them. And so they discuss it like, should we leave the building? Should we not? And they all agree that they should go ahead and risk it to get out. Like even if they might die, they should risk it because they don't want to be stuck in there and die in there. What's up, Mr. Angry Snadam? Fedora, old Fedora. Um, but essentially, at that point, they keep digging down, and so they break through Antoine's apartment floor. They get to the air raid shelter, and essentially, once they get down there, they feel like their hope is coming to them. They're feeling happy, like they think this is going to actually work. And so they go through like this tunnel a little bit. They get to the air raid room, and then there's this metallic door. It's got these three metallic bars. They use the giant sledge slash axe that they have in their hand, and Liv like starts hammering the metal bars, and they break. They're really old. They're really rusty, and so they break. There's three of them. She breaks them, and they open the door, and to their surprise, to their horror, that doorway is also blocked by the bricks. So right now we've reached the midpoint of the movie, and this is a good midpoint shocker. This is like they had a plan, and that first plan didn't work, and that's pretty on point with story structure. The heroes or hero, they have a plan, and the first plan doesn't work, so they have to readjust the plan after the midpoint and continue on towards the new plan. That's basically pretty standard story mechanics. So they kind of freak out, and Marvin's freaking out the most. And he takes the axe slash sledgehammer, starts hitting it, and Will's like, "Stop, stop! You're gonna break our tool. We may end up using this again, so don't break it." And so he's not calming down. Grandpa has a gun, and he grabs it and puts it in the back of Marvin's head. He's like, "Boy, you better calm down." And so he's like, "Okay, okay, okay. I'm calm. I'm calm. Everybody chill." So everybody kind of lets their guard down. And Marvin and the grandpa puts his gun back in his pants. And Marvin, he's like, "Yeah, I'm calm. I'm calm. I'm calm." He turns around and very quickly takes the gun from Grandpa, Mister, what's his name? Well, Grandpa, and he starts shooting at the door. And this is where we have like a Matrix moment. The bullets, they don't hit the door. They're flying in the air, and they're spinning, and they stop right in front of the door. And Will remembers what happened last time, so he's getting a very bad feeling about this, and so he tells everybody to get down. And so everybody gets down, except for the grandpa. He's slow to move, and so the bullets go flying back the other way from the door towards them. Luckily everybody kind of ducked in time, except the grandpa, and he gets shot. He gets shot in the chest. He falls over, and it's not looking good. And he pretty much dies right there and then, right? And so everybody's like really sad. Everyone's really mad at Marvin. Marvin, like I said, he's the kind of character that, because his emotions get the best of him, he just really fucks things up for everybody. And this is one of those moments where he just fucked up everything for everybody, including killing an old man by accident. So Leah is really upset because that was her grandpa. So they go back upstairs where Yuri is, and they're all really like just sad. They're broken. Their hopes are broken. And Yuri's like, you should be thankful because if you would have walked out that door, you would have certainly died by radiation or chemicals or whatever, because that's what he believes. He believes that whatever's around them and blocking them is there for their protection. And so at this point, they've all pretty much lost all hope. And Anna has an idea. He's like, maybe there's something that connects us all for some reason. And this is why we've been chosen. and which isn't really true. It has nothing to do with why they're there and what's going on. This is what Anna thinks. And so for some reason, Anna starts talking about near death experiences. They all start telling their story, which leads to the couple having to confront what happened to them, which was lose a child. And Will just doesn't want to confront that. He keeps running away from that. He doesn't want to confront the pain of that, and finally the midpoint is really parallel with the character arc of Will and Liv and their relationship, because that's what's at stake. And so they have a huge argument. They're kind of almost like blaming each other. Liv blames him for holding her back for 2 years after the child died, and everything has just been pretty much tells him that you built walls around you, just like now they have walls around them, right? It's kind of interesting. It's like you're invisible, you're not here. And so Will, you know, he has a very hard look at himself, and he's just thinking about what she said. And, at this point, because of the big argument, they're not necessarily at the best of terms. Um, so they're there. And so, Yuri's just eating food. He's just like, in his mind, he's happy that they failed. But Will doesn't want to give up. There's something about him looking at their situation like they're in a game, and he's just trying to look at every possible way to figure out a way out, like if it was a game, like a video game. And so he starts thinking, okay, so what if we go back to Mr. Friedman's apartment, and start looking for more things, more possible, anything that could explain what's going on. And then Leah thinks about Antoine's like paperwork that he made, all his like mathematical equations and stuff, the study on the door, and he's like, we should look at that. So they go, okay, let's split up. You guys go to Antoine's apartment, look around, see what you can find, see if there's any clues about how to get out. And Will and Marvin go upstairs to see if there's anything upstairs that they can find. So they're looking. Marvin is looking through drawers and whatnot. And Will notices something interesting. Will notices that, because I think all the apartments are roughly the same size in rooms and whatnot. He notices that Mr. Freeman's room is smaller than his. And so he's like looking at this wall. And at the same time, Marvin finds a remote control that's like very, like, just it's a control with numbers. And there's like a big button to press. And so he's like, okay, well, maybe this is like a secret doorway or something. And so they see the control, they click it, and it makes the door makes like a buzzing sound, like error. And so Will gets this brilliant idea to get flour and to like blow it on the screen of this controller. It's got the numbers, and you see the thumbprints on four numbers. And he's okay. So now all we have to do is try 24 combinations of these four numbers, and we'll have the door open. And so they're trying different things while downstairs, uh, and and in Antoine's room, Leah and Liv are looking through for things, and they noticed a piece of paper that had a drawing of the door, just like Liv and Will have at their door, and it's got these four blocks that have been colored in. And so she recognizes. They remember they were messing with those four blocks earlier with the metallic stuff because it was magnetic, and they keep looking through papers. They notice like codes. They notice mathematical equations. They're trying to make sense of it. And so Will and Marvin get the door open, that circuit door open, and they go in and they call everybody up. They call everybody to come upstairs to check this out. So Liv and Yuri go upstairs. Leah stays behind to look more around. And while she's looking around, she uh, she notices something really interesting. And so Antoine's laying on the bed. He's dead, and he he's wearing a red scarf. And so she looks underneath the red scarf, and there's like bruises on his neck. So she's like freaked out. She thinks like, oh man, Yuri must have murdered him or something. And here comes Yuri behind her, and you're like freaking out because you're like, oh shit. So she just discovered that Antoine was choked to death. It was probably Yuri. And here comes Yuri, who is right behind her, and then it cuts to upstairs. And so the room that they found, the secret room that belonged to Mr. Friedman, is a secret room that's got the like computers, and on the computer screens, it's got all the the live feed from all the cameras, from all the fire detector things that are on the ceiling. So they see all that, except for the ones they broke, and they're like, "Wow, he's like a weird, really strange guy." He's like, "Wow, he's a peeping tom. He's just a weird guy." Marvin's freaking out because he's like, "See, I told you, this super host was up to something. He was trying to kill us." Like he's just still freaking out and still on that train of thought. And so Will starts checking the footage, and he notices one footage in particular where Antoine is trying to open the door, and he's using like his phone or flat. He's off screen, but you can see that he's like using his phone, like he's walking towards the door. He goes out of frame. There's flashes of light, and then they notice that they keep watching the video, and they see Yuri attack Antoine, like seriously attack him. Yuri smashes Antoine's head against like a wall. He brings him down and like chokes him to death, and they're freaking out. So Will jumps up, grabs the gun, and runs down to see what's going on. And Marvin actually went ahead of him before he saw that video, just to see what's going on. And so when Will appears at Antoine's room, you have Yuri like choking Marvin, who's got that knife, and he's about to kill him. And so Will is like, let him go, let him go. And he looks down over to the floor and sees Leah dead, like she's been choked to death. And so when he looks down, that gives Yuri enough time to go after him and like try to get the gun away. And so they have a bit of a fight, and Yuri's on top of Will, and he's just choking him to death. And finally, Marvin, he like Yuri hit him or something. He got knocked over. He like gets up and kicks Yuri off of Will, and so Marvin picks up the gun, and is holding it towards Marvin, towards Yuri. Here comes Liv down the stairs with Anna, and they're totally freaked out. They see Leah dead, and they're all just like freaked out. And so Marvin's about to kill Yuri, and Liv is like, "Don't kill him because he might know a way out." So before, and like Yuri kind of laughs and like is about to get up and like strike somebody. So before he does, Will comes with that knife and hits him in the back of the head with the butt of the knife and knocks him out. So now we're pretty much really into, you know, we've passed the midpoint of the movie. We're basically past. We're in Act Two. We've really went into Act Two, and we're reaching. That's pretty much a turning point in the movie, and we're starting to get into Act Three. So Yuri's tied up, and like with tape and stuff to a chair, and Will and Marvin and everybody else is like asking him questions, like, what's going on, like, how do we get out? Like, and he won't reply, right? He won't give him the answers of how to get out, even though Marvin's like hitting him in the face. But what Marvin says is, "Look, you know, we're at war, okay? Uh, Somebody attacked us, and this is a technology that is a defense system to protect us from whatever's out there." That's what he believes. And so Will's going through his stuff. Yuri's got a bag, and there's all these books on conspiracies, World War III and stuff. He like looks through it, and so finally, Liv has a question that's like, well, if it's if it's a defense system, why would Antoine want to get out? You know, and so finally, Yuri says something. He confesses something and says, "Well, Antoine thought that the fire was at the factory of this technology is what set off the system, and by mistake." That's what Antoine thought. But Yuri was convinced that war had broke out, and so that's why he killed Antoine to keep the door from like opening. Because he did in the video. You see like Antoine, he gets out of frame. You see flashes, and then you see daylight. So they assumed he opened the door for a second. So, but they don't quite make the connection with the flashes quite yet. So, Yuri was burning the work that Antoine did, all the paperwork, all the mathematics, the graphs, everything that was like all the clues to suggest how to get out. And so that was all burnt. So Anna has a bright idea. Anna's like, well, there's a camera in here in the fire detector. So what if I go upstairs and review the footage and see what I can find? So that's what she does. And so um, they, they basically she does that, and so she's like looking through the footage and notices that Antoine for hours is taking pictures of the wall, working on his computer, taking pictures of the wall, working on his computer. And so Will kind of connects the dots for them and says, "Oh, he's creating a program, like a program or something." And so they check the his computer, and they see that he made a program, and all they need is a cell phone to connect to the computer, the phone. And so they use a cell phone. They whatever program Antoine created, they were able to download that onto the phone as an app. And so they're like, okay, so this must be the key to get out. This must be the way to get out. So they go and test it. And so whenever they go to the door on the phone screen, you see the app open, and basically it's like you see the four squares, and they light up like buttons. And so Will presses them, and just like from top to bottom, and the door starts to shift and do something, and it becomes like liquid. It's like nanotechnology. And so they Anna, for some reason, is like really in awe by this, and she like moves towards it and like touches it with her hand, with her finger, and is like, oh, this is like, it's like liquid. It's like it's almost like a portal. So she sticks her whole hole in there, and Marvin doesn't know what's going on because he's being guard. He's got the gun at Yuri, and so like he doesn't know what to do. So he like smacks him, try to smack him unconscious. Then goes to see what's going on. Is like, and pretty much tells Anna to get her hand out of there because he's freaking out. And Anna's like, okay, and she can't. Her hand is stuck into that nanotechnology wall, and she can't get it out, and she's actually being sucked in. And so everybody tries to pull her out, and they can't do it. She keeps getting sucked in. She gets sucked in to the point where her whole arm is sucked in, her legs. She's got her whole up to her torso. All you can see is her torso and her one free arm, and they're pulling her, and suddenly the wall starts becoming brick again. It's not that liquid form anymore. And so it's starting to become brick, and everyone's freaking out. Anna's freaking out. She's like, "Get me out, get me out." And finally it all becomes solid again and cuts her in half. And they go flying back, they pull her like just the top of her torso comes flying out, and everyone's freaking out, everyone's freaking out at that point. And so at this point, you should connect as the audience member. This is probably what happened to Mr. Friedman. He was taking pictures of the wall, and the pictures had flash, and the wall was reading that as code, and it must have turned it into liquid. And so he stuck his hands in there, and that's when he couldn't get out, and then it became solid, and it cut his hands off. So that's probably what happened to him. So everyone's freaking out. Marvin is totally crushed because that's like the love of his life, and throughout the whole time you see him all lovey-dovey, right? And so this is like he's freaking out. Yuri's laughing at the fact that like that's what happened. He can kind of hear what's going on, and he's just laughing, and he just reminds them that it's just not going to let him out no matter what. And so Marvin's pissed. He's laughing. The guy Yuri's laughing at the fact that she died. He's pissed. He's gone. His emotions have taken over completely. He grabs a gun and shoots him in the chest. He shoots a couple of bullets but misses, and like one hits him right in the chest, and like just we all think he's dead. And I say we all think he's dead because I'll tell you what happens next. But so then Marvin, he's he's the love of his life is dead. He just killed a man. he's out of it. He takes the gun and shoots himself in the head. That's what Marvin does. So goodbye, Marvin. He's dead. So at this point, it's very somber. Everyone's just like, all that's left is Will, Liv, and that's all we assume is alive, you know? And so they kind of have a little moment where they're just sitting on the ground and they start talking. Will opens up and he's like talking about why he was closed off and this and that. He apologizes and, Liv and Will have a moment and they reunite. They re-spark that love that they had that they found again, and they rebonded. And so, and Liv is fiddling with the car keys in her hands. So that's shot on purpose because we'll find out later. Let me take a sip of this. So we're coming very close to the end of the movie. We're in Act Three by this time. We're getting close to the climax. So they try it again. They pull out the phone. There's the squares that light up on the phone when they point at the door. And before they do it, Liv suggests, well, they did capture Antoine off screen, off the camera that was hidden in the fire detector. That there was these flashes, so they review the footage and they count the flashes. So it's like I think it's like three flashes, or no, it was six. The first one was six flashes, then it was four, then it was like two, and then so on and so on. And so they go, okay, that's the code. They have the code now. So they go to the door, and they think they're about to get out, and here comes Yuri. He gets out of his chair, even with a bullet in his chest. He comes out and with the knife at hand, and he comes out yelling and tries to strike Will, but Will gets out of the way, and then they have a big fight. Will like headbutts Will. Yuri headbutts Will and knocks him out, and then looks at Liv and is like walking really slowly towards her, and she's backing out really slowly, and she actually falls through the hole, and she goes flying down to the to the to the basement area, the air, what I call it, the air shield or whatever, the bunker. And so she falls down, and Yuri's like, what he does is looks at her and goes, shh. And then here comes Will and kicks Yuri into the hole. He goes flying, hits his like head against something, and he like falls out. And so Will jumps down, helps Liv up, and they run through the tunnel. And Yuri's running right after them with the knife, and so they're able to shut a door, so Yuri can't get through. And that's when Will tells Liv to use the phone to open the doorway, to use the code and to get the bricks to open. So while Will's holding back the door, Yuri's like with the knife stabbing through the door and trying to get through, and she does the code and the pattern, and it opens. It starts to open, but by this point, Yuri actually is able to get through the door, and with knife in hand, and is like fighting with Will, and Will's able to get a couple of punches where he was shot, and it kind of hurts him really bad. But then, Yuri's like a trained police officer. He knows how to fight, so he's able to like knock Will down. And it reminds me of that scene with Saving Private Ryan where the German has the knife and he's trying to kill that American. It was kind of the same thing, right? You have Yuri on top of Will, and he's trying to like stab him with the knife and kill him through his heart. And so Yuri punches Will, kind of knocks him out, and he just like for a second he like opens his eyes, and Yuri's like doing this with a knife. He's about to come down with it, and that's when Liv comes with the sledgehammer and just smacks the back of Yuri's head, and he just falls over. Boom, he might be dead. And so, symbolically, Liv sticks her hand out. Will takes it. Their bond is complete. That their whole like I'm gonna be here for you forever type of thing. I'm always your partner. Like it just the whole character arc is complete at that moment. And so they run through the door. They're running through this tunnel, and they make it out. And when they make it out, there's something very surprising that you don't see coming. because when they're running towards the light, the light fills up the whole screen and goes like a white. And for a second, you don't know what the heck is going on. You don't know if there's been an atomic bomb. You don't know if there's been a chemical bomb. You don't know if the whole town is destroyed. You don't know anything. You just see a white. They run towards it, and then finally the white fades, and they're outside. And what you see outside is really crazy, incredible, insane. Okay, they look everywhere, and all that brick stuff is covering every single building. Every building they see is covered in it. And they're just like freaked out. They're just like in awe. And so Liv has the car keys. And so, like I said, in the beginning of the movie, we get to see that pink van. And it's kind of like a bookends to the movie, right? They see the van, they run towards it, they get in the van, they turn on the radio, and they drive off. And the stick shift, they both grab it together and push it forward again, symbolizing that they're together. They're in this together. And on the radio, you hear that the factory that caught on fire, that exploded, was Epsilon Nano Defense Technology or whatever. And basically, I guess it blew up and it set off this nanotechnology system of defense to the whole town of Hamburg. And so that's what we find out what happened. And so they just drive off, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. So my two critiques out of the whole movie was that, number one, since they knew how to get out and open doors, why didn't they go out and help other people? That's my number one critique. They just drove off. They're just like, okay, we're out of here. They knew how to open the door. Why didn't they go help other people? Is like, what the hell? They just ran off. Like, what the hell? And then the second critique I had was in the filmmaking. In the midpoint, whenever they find out that they go through trouble of going through all the floors, and they reach the air raid shelter down at the very bottom of the basement, whatever, and there's a tunnel that leads to this metallic door that leads to the subway, whatever. When they open it, it's covered. It freaks them out. Well, like I said before, Marvin's freaked out, and he's able to grab the gun and shoot towards the door, and the bullets go flying towards the door. But then, like kind of like Matrix, they f- they like freeze, and like the door has some kind of magnetic field where the bullets don't hit it, so the bullets are like holding still in midair and spinning. And so Will's like, "Everybody get down!" And so the bullets go firing back, right? So the way they cut it, when you see everybody get down, you see everybody get down. Even Liv gets down, right? But then they cut to Liv standing up, and then a bullet hits like right behind her head, and then she gets down. So that was a weird cut to me. Like she was already down, and so to cut back to her standing up was kind of a weird thing for me. But I guess they wanted to get that shot of the bullet like barely missing her head. But to me, it was like, well, she was already down on the floor. We saw her get on the floor, and then we cut to her, and she's just standing up again. It's like that doesn't make any sense, or I don't know, whatever. Maybe it was like a weird playback cut. So that's my two critiques. Was that shot, the back to back shot of Liv already being down on the ground, but then she's back up. In the next cut was like kind of weird, and then the final ending was they just leave. It's like they didn't help anyone else to get out. They knew how to get out, they knew the key and everything, and they just didn't help anyone else. They just left. So that's my two critiques of the movie. But that's really, those don't matter really. Like the cut of her being down on the ground, and the next cut she's up. People will miss that. Okay, people will completely miss that. And then the ending. Some people may have the same thoughts that I have of why didn't they go help other people? They just left. Some people may have that thought, and some people may not. But just depends. But overall, even though I had those two critiques about it, I thought it was shot very well. The movie had a nice flow. The character arc was nice. It just the way they did foreshadowing and the way it was just all constructed was really well made film. Original, pretty original story. It fits in with the genre of the escape room, but they had a nice sci-fi twist there that was completely surprising. And it was a big mystery, so that was pretty cool. So I do give it two thumbs up. I give it 5 out of 5 stars, even though I have those two critiques about it. Um, so yeah, definitely go watch it. If you get a chance, go watch it. I think it's worthwhile. It's kind of thrilling. It's mysterious. It's the characters are enjoyable. And yeah, I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really well done, and I highly recommend it. So there you go. And that main character who plays Will, that actor, what's his name, Matthias Schweighofer, something like that. He's been in some other good movies that you should also, if you get a chance, look up. Um, I can't remember the Army of Thieves. I think is one of them. Army of Thieves is one movie that he's in. That's really good. So check that out. But anyways, yeah, there's my review for the movie. There's my plot outline. So if you enjoyed that, I'll be doing another one this Wednesday on the movie called The Wrath of Becky, and that's a really fun one. That's also a fun movie, and I can't wait to do the review and plot outline for The Wrath of Becky. Very, very cool film, very entertaining, oddly enough. It's an odd film, but very entertaining. Okay, so having that all said, this video will be posted tomorrow sometime. It's got a process, and so probably towards the evening tomorrow, it'll be available to watch. And without further ado, I just got to say my spiel. This video was brought to you by the Indie Showcase and the Stay Gold Film Festival, and my new book is available on Amazon, Dialogues, Oklahoma Independent Cinema. You can find that on Amazon. I would appreciate it if you have any interest in the interesting things that I interviewed about 14 different actors, filmmakers, producers here in Oklahoma, and I give my little insights as well. So, if you're interested, you can buy that copy right now on Amazon. Okay, so that's it, folks. My name's Lasso. For those who don't know, this is Lasso's Passions. I have many, many passions that I pursue, including filmmaking, screenwriting, acting, and all that art, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, that's about it. Give me a like if you like what I did, and give me a sub if you like what I did. And I'll be seeing you on the next one, folks. So you all have a good night. And until next time, I will say peace to you all. Peace, 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 peace.